Hello, today is Saturday the 26th of January and it is time for my tutorial for a canvas pour that's dedicated specifically for kids. I want to give a disclaimer. I was supposed to do live today and I woke up with all intent and purposes to do that, but it's really hard today. I look and I feel a mess because my mom lost her baby sister, and today is my aunt's funeral, and I just don't look to par for a video today, but I still wanted to stay with my promise to give a tutorial specifically for kids. And when I say specifically for kids, it's because of the type of products that I am using today that I believe are friendly and kid safe, and a good way to introduce acrylic pours to a younger generation. I really wish that this is something that I had discovered when I was much younger. But anyway, here it goes. The paint that we're using today is a craft paint that is found at Walmart. It's apple barrel. It's very inexpensive. It's great for artists who are starting out, that are trying to learn different techniques, the consistency of paints, testing, you know, just kind of the waters of if this is something that you really want to do. This is a great economic friendly alternative. The apple barrel paints come in smaller sizes, but I bought the larger ones because I do a lot of practicing, and when I do, these are the paints that I use. This one is just your basic white. I have a real yellow, a red, and a real blue. I hope this camera is doing well. It looks like it's kind of focusing or whatever, but I hope that comes out okay. Now, the pouring medium that I'm using today, and when I say pouring medium, that is the term that we use that's going to bind the colors so that the pigment can stay consistent with what you see in the bottle. If you do not use a pouring medium, the paints will begin to separate and it will not flow pretty on your canvas or whatever you're pouring on, because you can pour on anything, wood, glass, ceramic, canvas, just about anything, and I'm having so much fun doing that. But for today, we'll be pouring on a canvas, and what I'm using to make my pouring medium is an Elmer's glue all. It's not the basic craft glue. This is, you can find this in the craft department, but it's PVA, and it helps to bind the colors for archival purposes so that you can have an artwork that's going to last. It is not something that I use when I'm doing the paints for to sell or something that I want to put up in my house. It's only for I would say children who want to begin playing with craft paints, or when I want to test out a different technique. I use this because the pouring medium that I normally use is very expensive, and this is only like $8, but it will last a long time because you don't use a lot. When you're mixing your paint, what you want to do is to get your color, and I'm just going to mix this one just so that you can see how I do it. You're going to put your paint in your cup. This is how it looks. And then you want to do about 50% of what you've put in your cup. And this is easier for me to do instead of squeezing it out. I just kind of pour it in and you eyeball it. If I'm working with my other paints and pouring mediums, I weigh it so that I can get the right amounts for consistency purposes. Let me get a stick. Okay. And as you begin to stir, you don't want to add your water right now. And as you begin to stir, you'll see how the glue is blending in with that yellow. You want to make sure there's no more white. There's no more glue in there. You want it completely mixed in your color. And when I'm stirring, if just for the sake of this video, I'm going to stir it a little bit faster, but normally this is the speed. You don't want to beat it like that because it will get air bubbles and they'll eventually pop, but you'll need some heat added to that to help them to pop. But you'll see the air bubbles begin to form. This is a little thick. You see how heavy that is on that stick? You don't want it that thick because it's not going to flow very well. And these paints take a very long time to dry completely before you can seal it. Some people seal their paint, some people, their artwork, some people do not. I choose to seal mine. It takes anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks for a painting to seal. So when I've been commissioned for a paint, for the few that I've done, I let the people know right up front, your paint work is not going to be ready in a week because this paint has to dry. It has to absorb into that canvas, and because you're layering the paint, they're on top of each other, then it becomes a lot thicker. So it takes a long time for that to dry. And I let them dry flat for about 2 weeks. And then I'll prop them up on something or put them away so that they can continue to dry for the next 4 weeks or so. This is kind of the flow consistency that you want. And we call that a warm honey consistency. You don't want it too watery because then if you have it too watery, it will run all over your canvas and it'll stain it, but it won't give you it won't give you the look that you want because you'll still see the canvas underneath. You want to cover that canvas, you want to stain that canvas, and you don't want to see the canvas beneath it at all. I mean, you may, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. But as for me, I've only done a couple where I actually wanted the canvas to show because I was doing flowers. That's a great consistency. Now this is the yellow that I'm working with here. And I let the paint sit. I did them ahead of time. Like I said before, I let them sit because it helps the air bubbles to move out. It's a beautiful process because you're creating something that nobody else has created before. Not even yourself. Even every time you do a pour, you will not get a pour exactly the same. Because that paint, you can't control that. You can manipulate it to go in certain directions, but you cannot control how it's going to dry. And if you do once you do a painting and you let it sit to dry, the paint still moves. You may not see it, but as those bubbles are popping, cells are being created, they are they're still shifting, they're still moving, so you won't be able to see it moving, but it's still moving. So the next morning you'll wake up and it'll be completely different than what you did before. Now I have to admit, a lot of my kitchen things utensils have come into my craft room. For instance, this baking pan, muffin pan. It's so easy for me to just be able to grab one color from the next and the next when I have it in something that's really sturdy. I have dropped paint in here before. This is just a muffin pan, and it also helps me to keep my colors in order as to how I want to pour them. And today we're doing what's called a dirty pour. We're going to layer the colors on top of each other, and then we'll pour onto the canvas. This muffin pan, you can get them from your kitchen like I did, or you can go to Goodwill and get your babies something like this to put their pans in. My cups all come from the Dollar Tree. I don't spend a lot of money on my cups. My craft sticks, these come from Dollar General. I've never found these at Dollar Tree. Some people have, but the jumbo sticks, they're, I believe, $2 for like 50 or 100 or something like that. So I stack up whenever I see them at the Dollar General. And let's see. This rack is what I use to dry my paints overnight. And also I got this from the Dollar Tree. They are pretty level so that my paints can dry evenly and not spill over too much. So this is what I use. And the canvas that I'm using today, I got this canvas from Hobby Lobby. It's an 8x10, I think. Yes, it's an 8x10. And this is a practice canvas. It's $3 for 2. I have gotten them from the Dollar Tree before, but they kind of warp. I mean, I wouldn't sell a canvas that I got from the Dollar Tree. Let me clarify that. I would only use that for practice. And these practice canvases come from Hobby Lobby, but they're really good because once I pour over it, if I, because I'm practicing, I can spray it with what's called a gesso, G-E-S-S-O. I can spray it with a gesso and it'll come back white and it looks like this, and it'll still have that canvas feel. And I can just do another pour on top of that. So I practice all the time. So this is not an expensive way to practice. It's very, very economical. Okay, now I'm going to use a cup and I'm going to begin our blending of the paint. Oh, first, hold on. Let me put some white down so I can pour a little bit of this on here. This, I'm creating what's called a negative space. I hope I have enough white. And the negative space is just, one, to make sure that you have enough acrylic paint on your canvas, and it also helps the other paints to move. It's so much fun. I can't wait to start doing more of these videos. So this is my first tutorial that I'm doing by myself. I've done one before. It was live. It was a mess, but I got through it, trying to overcome a few fears in 2019. Okay, now this have a few bubbles in it, so I want to get rid of some of these bubbles. This is my heat gun. So I'm going to use this, and it's popping all those bubbles. I'm going to get rid of that. Now, I don't recommend the kids use a heat gun without parental supervision, so please don't tell your moms and dads that Sugar said that you needed to go out and get a heat gun. If you let your paint sit long enough, the bubbles will pop on their own. So I am layering my paints. I'm going to show you. This is how it does. It's a messy process, but it's so fun. And I normally don't wear gloves, but I decided to put on gloves so that you can kind of see the right way to do this. Now I've only layered 4 colors so far, and this is what it looks like in there. You see that? So I'm going to just continue to go. We're going to do a flip cup dirty pour, and I'll show you. It's a flip and drag. It's what it's called. And just layering it on top. Now I believe for this right here, I think my paint consistency is a little, it's not as thick as the first, is the yellow that I showed you. Hold on, let me show you this red, just so you can see. It's not as thick. It's a little bit runny, but I did it so that you can see how that paint moves. See how that's not as thick as that red. I mean, not as runny as that red. Okay, I'm going to continue to layer. And that's all the blue I'm going to use, and all the red I'm going to use. That blue and red will take over your paint. Now at this point, I'm going to use, I keep saying gonna, I'm so country. I'm from Texas, but anyway, I'm going to use some silicone. You can use this or not use this. And what this does is to create cells in your artwork. I'm just going to put a couple of drops in there. Oops, maybe too much. Too much will make the cells big. They'll stretch more. Just a few drops will have your cells between dime and quarter size, and they'll kind of stay more intact. I can kind of see them forming in there now. So I'm going to put this white on top of that. What you don't want is for that silicone to be the first thing that hits your canvas, because it'll just go straight to the canvas and paint will not go over that. So I'm gonna break my rule and add a little bit more blue here, because I want to cover that silicone. Put some yellow on top of that. Okay. Got that set. Now again, this is called a flip cup and drag. This is a lot of paint. It's probably too much paint for this canvas, but that's okay. You see what I'm doing? Putting that cup under that paint and then flip it. Like that. And let it sit. I'm going to bring the camera a little closer so you can see how it's kind of seeping from under there. Tap that to get that color out of there. Up and drag. And the cells are those little, they're coming under those bubbles. And you see how that paint is moving all by itself? I'm not doing anything yet. Two reasons for that. It may not be level and it may be too thin. Now, you see all that? Those are cells that are popping. Okay. Now this is when you get to manipulate your paint. I don't know what that was. It just flew on my painting, but I'll have to find it and get it off. I'm going to let you see how that falls on the side. See how that's coming over. This is how I cover my sides. I rarely work with this color scheme, but it's good. Like I said, good practice paint, so I don't feel like I'm wasting anything because I don't pay too much for it. Now, if you want to cover your sides more, you can just pick up your paint and tap it like that. And what you're doing is adding paint to that section, and it's helping to pull it. That's different. Oh wow. I have no idea what this is going to do. Alright. That yellow just really took over. Now I'm going to take my gloves off because no painting is complete for me without a little glitter. Let me add a little bit more heat to this real quick. You see that? When I added that heat, more cells begin to pop. So now it's like a little white. All that white that's in there is coming from under the bottom. You don't want to put too much heat. Not too much heat, because it will begin to cook your painting, and you don't want that. So I'm just adding some here where I see white spots. That's even prettier. I almost don't need to add any glitter. Okay. Now, let me find a glitter. Let me use this. Got this glitter from DecoKeaft. It's a really nice, fine glitter. And you got to be really careful, because you want to make sure that you're finished with all of the tilting that you're doing before you add your glitter. Oh, that's pretty. Let me add a little bit more. That whole little area that was blue, I'm just adding my glitter on there. That is so pretty. I'm going to show you from this angle. I don't want to drop this phone in there. Can you see that? How pretty that is? Now tomorrow, even those colors will begin to continue to pop up from what's underneath. And if I add any more heat, it'll continue to do that. I see that little thing that was in my... I keep tweezers just in case I get a little flyaway of something that flies on my... There we go. Don't know what that was. Alright. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for joining Sugar Bella Bling Flow Art. And until my next video, I'll see you. Bye.